Joining us is a lady who is no stranger to the Observer. Let me say a pleasant good evening to St. Augustine MP and UNC Shadow Minister of Local Government, Khadija Ameen. Pleasant good evening, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, Mikee K, and of course to all your listeners. Thank you so much for having me once more with you guys.
Thank you so much for being with us, taking time out of that busy schedule. And again, all the best to you and your family. Season's greetings, and well, as best as possible, you can make 2024. That's all I can really say. But all the best to you and your family.
I appreciate it very much, and same to you.
Yeah. Earlier today, you had a press conference. You spoke about one of the things was the food cards. And there has been a release since from the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, giving assurances that everything is being done to get Christmas food cards to its clients as soon as possible. The ministry says that it received several calls from members of Parliament relating to the delivery and use of the cards for 2023. It says it has been working closely with the card provider, which is First Citizens Bank Limited, to find a solution quickly. Now, I had Mr. Kiran Singh on last night from South, the Chamber of Commerce, and I had to pose the same thing. I mean, Christmas is going to come next year. If we are alive, we're going to see it the year after, and we're just mere 5 days away from Christmas Day. One would have thought that this entire process, whatever kinks may have existed, whatever problems may have been, hindering getting these cards out or having them work, would have been already taken care of. Why are we dealing with this as an issue with just 5 days away from Christmas?
I myself asked the same question. It has been several years since the Ministry of Social Development started doing the Christmas food cards. These cards are worth $550. It is a menial amount. No government minister is making $550 in groceries for their Christmas. And you are giving this form of charity to persons, hundreds of persons throughout the country. And you are in a situation where, first of all, MPs were told that there was a problem with the shipment to get the cards into the country. And there are MPs who are waiting for, in fact, for almost a week, because they were told to come on a certain date, and then we were told the dates kept getting pushed back. And we have MPs who are scheduled to collect cards as late as Friday. However, those of us who did receive cards and distribute cards are now encountering the situation where people collect the cards, sign for it, go to the grocery, pick up all their things and reach by the cashier. And when they swipe the card is saying invalid. And that is such an embarrassing position for anybody to be in, much less a person who is poor enough to receive a food card. So I am saying the ministry had enough time to prepare. They had the whole year to import the cards, to put the cards on the system, to put the money on the cards. And I find it so embarrassing to people, to any human being, that you'd put them through this, and the ministry could get their house in order. I have received complaints from several UNC MPs who are experiencing this situation, who the persons who received told them, well, we have not gotten the funds on the thing. And those MPs now who will receive the cards on Friday, they are now tasked with Christmas Eve to try to give out these cards in time so people could get a meal for Christmas Day. So you understand the predicament that they are putting people in, putting not only us as representatives, but putting the recipients in. And I feel it could be a little more dignified about the process, treat people a little more humanely. Yes, it is a form of charity. Yes, people are grateful. But I feel that they could do better in terms of being more timely.
But let me ask you this. Is there names that are submitted? I mean, how is the process? Is there a limited amount as far as what the opposition MPs may receive, or is it straight across the board, a certain amount is given to every constituency office?
I don't know how many cards are received by the government MPs. I know that 200 cards were issued to each opposition MP, each of them valued at $550. I have known persons with supermarkets who, when they check balances of persons there are people with food card with thousands of dollars on it. And of course, the minister may not want to expose her own colleagues or if there is any form of unfairness within her ministry. But the little that my constituents get, they are grateful. We were issued 200 cards each at $550 TT dollars on the card, and it expires within 1 month. It is a temporary food card. I have a number of persons who have applied for permanent food cards who have been getting a runaround, and I have been, giving them these temporary food cards. But if they are truly in need. So, one of the things that I am also concerned about is where, let me tell you, I get so upset talking about this situation because I know people's situation firsthand because I live among my constituents. Some of these families I have known for years, and there are families who my list is full, and I'm still trying to get hampers to give to families. I have been telling people, check the balance before you go and pick up your groceries. But the truth is that the 200 food cards for St. Augustine, there are people who are on my list that cross the 200,
Yeah.
But what I really want is for us not to be dependent on the food cards. I want our economy to be revived so that people will have jobs, people could open businesses and prosper. A lot of people don't want a food card, They have no choice. But if they get the opportunity to work and earn a decent income for their family, they will not want the food card. So I'm saying that this is a failure on the part of the government in terms of making good the economy enough to really provide jobs and soften.
And again, I would think that, any right-thinking person would think that coming out of the pandemic, seeing so much taking place with small and medium enterprises, many not being able to open their doors after the pandemic, that these social programs would be a priority to get the lifeline out to individuals who really and truly need it. But in fact, it's plagued with so many mishaps and problems, and it makes you wonder, if it was even a priority to get these things in the hands of people who really and truly need it. You also touched on property tax, and what's interesting is that in the Senate earlier this week, Mr. Finance Minister Imbert said that he had persons from the most prestigious neighborhoods in Trinidad and Tobago complaining to him about the annual rental value that has been assessed for their property. He said he'll use an example, which is Federation Park. He said people from Federation Park have complained to him that their houses have been valued at a rental value that is equivalent to just around $20,000 a month. So he said, as a group of people came to him, and they are getting more than $10,000 a month for their property. That's what he said. He said that they're saying that nobody in Federation Park is getting more than $10,000 a month. And he says, how do you deal with that? Because one knows that that is not so. $10,000 for Federation Park, he knows better. It goes on and on. Come 2024, it's going to be in effect, but yet still there's so many things that need to be worked out. What's really the big deal about the plan, I should say, about this property tax, and what can we look forward to?
I think property tax and the government's rush to implement property tax is their way of pulling themselves up by the straps of their own boots. And I say that to mean that the government has failed to create revenue and to generate new sources of revenue, to diversify the economy, to create jobs and so on. And taxing and increasing taxes or bringing a new tax is a way to increase government revenue for them. I don't think they have fully thought out the whole issue of collection. At present, the present taxes that are paid in terms of VAT and Green Fund and all the other taxes, you have issues with its collection. But now that you are going into property tax, you started your property tax campaign by telling people this money will go to the regional corporation so that you'll have better roads, you'll have potholes, you'll have better pavements, you'll have parks. Now they are going on a different path because Mr. Imbert is saying it will go to the consolidated fund and then go to the regional corporations. So your taxpayers' dollars could go to buy boat and painting and all these things. It could go to pay off a government minister who is involved in a sexual harassment scandal. And that is what your taxpayers' dollars for property tax could go for. And we are saying, while ideally in most jurisdictions, local property taxes goes towards the local bodies, we are saying that in our country, we must examine the property tax regime. First of all, our position is now is not the time to implement property tax. We are still emerging from the COVID pandemic. There are a lot of small businesses who have gone out of business. There are a lot of people who got 4% wage increase while the price of groceries went up by 17%. There are a lot of people who are police officers and public servants who have a side hustle because their income is not sufficient to take care of the cost of their living. And now is not the time to bring in the property tax. But we are saying that even withstanding that, the government has been giving a lot of mixed messages where property tax is concerned. The only thing consistent from them is that they intend to implement property tax by hook or crook. First you hear it going to regional corporations, then you hear it's going to the consolidated fund. They talk about the evaluation process. They are standing up from the road and evaluating your property, and then they will send you a letter to tell you how much you have to pay. They are telling you that as a pensioner, you can have a rebate. You don't have to pay property tax, but they are not telling you that if you take a rebate as a pensioner, when you die, whoever has to inherit your property has to pay the taxes from the day you stopped paying in order for the letters of administration to be processed for that property to pass on. So that people are confused and the government is misleading. The government has been flip-flopping. They have been deliberately messing with the truth.
And you're correct. And there's a lot of flip-flopping involved here. I mean, if you go back to, of course, when it was mentioned in the budget, it was said that this will provide local government bodies, and this is the finance minister speaking, saying that this will provide local government bodies with a new and sustainable revenue stream to be used for procuring goods and services and or their development programs, and not for personnel expenditure. Legislative amendments will be made in due course to ensure that this money is not used for the wrong purpose. So again, a lot of flip-flopping. I mean, we're hearing about this fund, but before we were under the perception that, listen, if it had to deal with the cemeteries, the recreational grounds, garbage collection, all of these things that we need in our communities, if we're going to have to go and dip deep in our pockets, our purse, or whatever, our wallets, and pull out this money, we expect to get something in return as far as service. Now we're hearing a totally different story.
Now, one of the things that we saw is during the budget, they created a line item under each regional corporation where I don't know how they guessed this figure. So most corporations, they put a $10 million allocation to each corporation, and they said that would come from property tax. It appears to me that they're just doing that to make it appear that the corporation has a higher allocation than it actually has. The minister further went on to say that whatever tax the corporation collects, it will have to go to the consolidated fund, and then they will apply to have that come to the regional corporation.
Right.
So it is as though they are actually collecting this 10 million, but they put it on the books. So when you look at the allocation for the regional corporation, it actually reads 10 million higher than it is. And then further down in the year, you will have cuts coming down. So if they tell you you're getting $75 million, by the end of the fiscal year, it will be far less. What we have also seen, you were mentioning that that they have been misleading, and we have had numerous instances of that. I think people have to start opening their eyes now. What they were told in the beginning was one thing, and what they are seeing now is very different.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of anxiety. I mean, people are basically holding on to whatever monies they had. Their promises were made as far as back pay and certain salaries and what have you. That has not, come to the reality of things. So they're holding on. I mean, they're squeezing that $5 because they're not sure if they're going to get $3 or $4 in return. And then going into the new year, it's not just a sense of that they don't want to pay it. Yes, they're hesitant to pay it, but they simply don't have the money. They don't. And the finance minister said that if it is that you find yourself in a situation, you're an elderly couple, and you simply don't have it because you're living on your pension, he said that there's an application. You can make an application to the Board of Inland Revenue for deferral of the tax so you don't have to pay it. So you as the pensioner who has been assessed with this high valuation, you don't have to pay it because you have demonstrated that you are on a fixed income and you simply can't afford it. Again, another part of the story that seems to be turning. And people will ask that question straight up, what if I don't pay it? I don't have it, I can't pay it. What? Please tell us.
So this is the part where they have been misleading. Now, that was always, the devil is in the details. That was always in the legislation. And so they were talking about the deferral without telling you what the conditions of the deferral would be. And it has always been there in their legislation. They just never spoke about that. But they spoke about property tax as though it is a magic wand to fix all the things that they have neglected over the past 8 years. They have neglected fixing, repairing roads, so you have so many potholes. They have neglected, regional corporations don't even have material to fill a hole, much less to build box drains and to reduce flooding and to put in retaining walls there where there are landslips. So in many cases, there are a lot of neglect in the communities, and people say, oh God, if this will bring me some relief, okay, I don't mind paying property tax. But now we're hearing that it's going somewhere else.
Yeah. And you're right. It seems as though that whatever you do or you turn and twist, they're going to get you. Because if it is that you're 70 years old and you're in receipt of a senior citizen's pension, and let's say you pass away, according to the minister, at age 75 or 80 or even at 90, now the person who inherits that, and you mentioned it earlier, is now responsible for paying those back taxes.
Correct. Very correct. So you may very well have to buy back your parents' property in order for you to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very scary.
What we also have to be very, what we have to remember is that in the beginning, the minister gave the impression that they were going to start with those who could afford. He gave the impression that they were going to start with commercial and industrial properties and come to residential and agricultural properties afterwards. In the beginning, that was the impression we got. So they said, listen, it's not going to be a burden because we're going to tax commercial property. Right. These people are running a business, so they can afford to pay, as opposed to taxing a residential home that does not bring in an income. That was the impression we got. And then the story changed. One of the other things that I have a serious concern with is the disparity in the value of properties across the regions. So for instance, Sandy Grande has been deemed by the CSO as one of the regions with the lowest income per capita. They are the poorest region, the region with the amount of poor people. The houses in those areas are often built of board and what you call chattel houses, right? So a lower value as compared to properties in the more built-up suburban areas. You have places that you have gated communities, you have million-dollar homes and so on. And of course, the value of those properties will be higher and they will pay higher tax. If you allocate taxes paid within a region to that region, there will be a disparity, and those who are in more need of funding will actually have less funding. Those like the rural areas where the houses and the properties are further apart where the value of the properties may be lower. They also have a lot of neglect. Let's just take their roads alone. Roads and drainage, basic infrastructure would be in greater need of repair. You also have a lower population density, so the money has to stretch further. And we have to ensure that property tax would in fact go to where it should go in terms of fixing that particular region. But how do we address that disparity that would come up, because it would happen across regions, and mostly the rural areas are the ones that will be affected. So immediately I think about Mayaro Regional Corporation, Sandy Grande Corporation, where you have rural, but you also have a lot of low income houses, and how do we balance that?
Yeah. A lot is taking place, and we really need to look at it as we move forward in 2024. Any closing comments? Go right ahead.
We are coming to the end of 2023, and I am really saddened by the state of crime and murders in the country. We are seeing murders every day, multiple murders, and the government has yet to get serious about it. I hope that the Prime Minister and the Minister of National Security will take the time over the holidays to reflect on the reality of the situation. And for God's sake and for the sake of Trinidad and Tobago, put country first. If it means sitting down with the opposition and finding solutions, the opposition will continue to call for meaningful crime talks with the government to provide some solutions. But the leader of opposition has indicated that we will also engage stakeholders to talk with us concerning crime and the issues things that we could do to reduce crime and criminal activities. And I am really pained because I see young people being gunned down in St. Augustine constituency. I hear about home invasions and people being held up and beaten in their own home. There are people who decide to migrate. They may barely be able to afford it. But we have people who wish they could migrate, and they continue to live in fear. And the psychological effect of that on our children, on our young people, living in fear, living with anxiety, always being scared when you go outside, and because of the violence around us. We cannot continue down the path that the PNM is taking us, and Trinidad and Tobago must take stock. We have pleaded with the government, we have begged them, we have moral suasion here working again. And the only real solution is to get rid of the PNM.
All right. I want to thank you so much for taking time, and best of luck to you and your entire team. And again, all the best for the season. Stay safe, and we'll be speaking again in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Mikee K.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.